Hello, 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 and everyone, and welcome back to What's Next, friend? So it's been a minute since I've posted a video, but as promised, I'm back on schedule. And this video is going to be talking about my second base. So I think I talked about basic training and when I joined. Kind of my experiences there. I talked about my first base. Um, I didn't talk about some of the traumatic things that happened at my first base. um, I don't know how I feel about trauma and explaining trauma and going over it, but if you're interested, you can ask me and we'll see if I get into that. So we're going to move on to the second base, okay? So I was at Dover Air Force Base in Delaware from, I think I got there in 1993. And then I left in 95. And I don't think I talked about like my first experiences there in terms of I wasn't making a whole lot of money. I didn't have a car, so I was like walking or getting rides. And I got my first car, bought my first car there at Dover. And the reason why I bring that up is because at my second base, I had like multiple jobs, including being active duty. But specifically, I'll go back to Dover for a moment and talk about my first car. So when I first got there was this car dealership that specialized in like lending to service members. And they would have this thing where you could go in and like test drive a car and you could test drive it for a weekend. And so I would go there and like test drive, knowing I couldn't afford it. I was an airman basic, y'all. I slick sleeve, like E1. And so I knew I had no money, but they were like friendly and really were looking out for service members. I don't know if it was like predatory lending practices at the time. I had no idea. But I did that a couple times until I was finally able to buy my own car. I had a Honda CRX or CBX or whatever. It's a little hatchback, little Honda thing. It was a stick shift. I loved that car. Love, love, love that car. That I had a what is it? The club, you used to protect your car with no car alarms or whatever, the club thing, because the guy I was dating lived in DC, and Delaware and DC were really close. And so when I first got my car, I was so excited. I was like, yeah, I got my car, so I'm gonna go see my man. I went down to DC, hung out with him, and I left my car. I parked my car on the street, and it got robbed. My first robbery. And I had one of those. So they stole my radio out of my car. And so I had insurance. Amen. Thank God. Because sometimes I didn't. But I did have insurance at that point, and I was able to get the radio replaced. And then I got one of those face off radios where you can kind of take the face off of it so it doesn't look like you have a radio. And he bought me a club because he was like, you were not going to be parking anywhere without a club. But anyway, that was my first base. If I have holes, you know what? I need to go back and look at these because I don't know if I'm telling full stories or half stories or whatever. If I need to go back and clarify some things or add some more things to the stories, I will. And once I become proficient in editing, I will be able to like chop things up and put everything in order in a logical, chronological order. So if I do need to go back, I will go back. But yeah, the reason why I mentioned that is so it took me a while to get a car. I think I was at my first base walking for like 18 months, and then I got a car, and then 6 months later, I had an assignment to go to Japan. So I had that car for like 6 months, and I actually sold it back to the dealer who sold it to me. He was so happy when I finally got that car because he was like, girl, I cannot be letting you just drive these cars. But yeah. Oh my gosh, there's so many things that happen at Dover. Maybe this will be a Dover. Let me update my. There are other things that happened at Dover. Okay, it was my first assignment. I was in my own room. I think this is going to be a Dover video because I'll just adjust my schedule. And I met the first. So I tried to do the theater thing, not theater, Tops in Blue thing, and that was a no-go. I also met one of my oldest friends. I've known her since I was there at Dover, and Christy. And she was a aviator. She was a load master for C5s. I was in a C5 squadron. C5 is heavy aircraft, and they ship cargo and all that kind of stuff. And during that assignment, I performed well. I got to go on incentive flights. So I got a flight suit and I got to go down range, which was exciting at the time, because I was able to get like tax-free pay. And when had like, by the time I got that, I think I had one stripe. When you have one stripe and you can get a month of tax-free pay, it's very, very nice. It's very nice. So that was cool. Christy was cool. She's a load master. She and I became really close. I worked shift work. I had like days, mids, and swings. Oh, funny story about just me and my overall like silliness, which is really remarkable that I have been able to like do this thing for so long, for 30 some odd years, and like rise to certain levels and get certain opportunities to lead in certain ways. This is who I am at the core. Okay. So we had shift work. We had days, swings, and mids. And I was on a swing shift, and the swing is like from like 4:35 to like 11 or midnight or something like that. So it was in the middle of the night. Nobody's in the squadron. And my job in the flying squadron was we had these alerts. So we had crews that would be flying. And then when they land, the command post would call us, would call the ops floor. And whoever was on shift was responsible for doing like the family calls. At that point, we would call their families to tell them to come pick them up because their flight was done. I don't know. It was a different time. But anyway, I saw nothing on the board to be scheduled. So I thought it was going to be a chill night. I had did all the things I need to do. And I'm looking at the Blues Brothers on the TV. You know, it's up in the MWalk. No, was it the MWalk? No, MWalk is for space operations. What was it called? The TOC. Tactical Ops Center. I can't remember the name of the ops center. Anyway, we had a desk. You know, we had our individual desk for the 271s or 1 Charlie Oscars, and then we would have the television in the room. So TV's in the room. I've done all the things I needed to do for my shift, so I think I'm just chilling. So Aretha Franklin comes on. You better think about what you're trying to do to me. So what do? It's a concert. I use the little counter desk that went around where people would come up and come to the counter, and we would kind of serve them. So I'm up there on the counter desk, BDU top off, just got my stuff on, using the microphone, and I am singing Think, and I am singing it like I am in a concert. The squadron is supposed to be completely empty. I am singing my heart out, and I am doing the choreo, making up my own choreo. I'm thinking I'm Aretha Franklin. I turn around to the glass doors, and there's an entire crew that's just like, Airman Springer. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I don't even know if I had any stripes then. I don't know how soon it was that happened. There was the crew commander of the crew, I think was a captain. And he was like, Airman Springer, oh, did you not get the alert call that tells you that we were coming back? And I was like, oh, freaking out. Oh my gosh, sir, I am so sorry. I feel so bad. I'm trying to get down from the thing, trying to put my uniform top back on, trying to get my professional status back on. And they were just like, okay, Airman Springer. I mean, they weren't saying okay at the time, but they were just like, clapping or whatever. And I was very, 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 very embarrassed. And they told my supervisor, and I got a little talking to about professionalism. But yeah, that happened at my first base at Dover. Also at Dover, I met an active duty service member who had AIDS. And in the early 90s, if you were old enough, you should know the history. AIDS was rampant. It was killing so many people. It was a terrible, dirty disease. And I didn't realize, because we had the don't ask, don't tell. And even though, gay people have been serving since there's been a military, I didn't really know anybody personally who was either, I actually, I did know people personally that were gay, but they not in the military. But I didn't know anybody personally who was suffering from AIDS. When I was in my senior year in high school in East Orange, New Jersey, we did have like a AIDS outreach group that my cousin, he was the minister of a church that he had an outreach group for. I didn't really help with them because I never had a chance to do that outreach group because it conflicted with the job that I had. I had two jobs when I was in high school, but I did other outreach stuff. So I obviously there were people in church who had AIDS, and but I didn't know them personally. So I say all that to say I met my first person who was HIV positive. He had AIDS, and he was getting treated at Walter Reed. And he was a key. Like, he was so cool. He took care of me. He knew that I was lost in the sauce when I got to that squadron, and I had no idea about anything, and they didn't really have me a sponsor. I was the only Black girl. I didn't know who from what. And this brother took me in, and he said, okay, Kim, we're gonna make sure, look, you're in these dorms. Do not be effing around with this one and that one and this one. This one's gonna tell your business. This one gonna be trying to be all up in your business. This one you can't trust. This one's shady. Like, he really, really took care of me because um I I was literally all along, like from basic training to my first assignment. So I didn't have that tech school relationship because in basic training, you're so restricted. You can't really, you form relationships, obviously, but you can't like have lasting friendships where you really, really get to know somebody. So I basically went from basic training in that very, very strict environment to my first base. And so I didn't have a whole lot of friendships at the time. And so he really took me in. He was an amazing, amazing individual. He passed away, I think, 4 years. We were friends while we were there, and then he PCS medical to DC to get the treatment. And I think I know when I was at Yokota, he passed away, but he really stuck in my mind because there was so much stigma with the disease. People not wanting to be around people, or just uneducated stuff. But he was amazing. I will never forget him. And I didn't realize that you could have AIDS and be in the military, because obviously he was a staff sergeant when I met him. I think he was a tech by the time he passed away. But yeah, so that was all at Dover. Let me see what else happened in Dover. Oh yeah, because I didn't get I wasn't able to do Tops in Blue. No acting for you. I said, well, I'm gonna go out into the community. So I went into the Dover Dell State. Dell State's HBCU, and they had like a theater troupe or whatever. And I did something with them. I don't know if it was a showcase or something, but I remember doing something with them. And I went on a date with a guy who went to Dell State, went to this party. I am from no college parties. I'd never been to a college party. Go to this college party, and they started smoking weed. I got so scared. I was like, oh, I'm gonna go to jail. Oh my gosh, I can't be here. I can't be here. And the guy I was dating, I said, I can't be around this. Like, I'm in the military. I can't be around this. And he was like, oh no, you'll be okay. You'll be okay. You just don't have to do anything. You just come over here with me. And I called my first sergeant, and oh my God, I wish I could remember his name. I called my first sergeant, and he said, go stand outside. I will be there to get you. And my first sergeant came and picked me up because I was freaked out at this college party where they were smoking weed. So shout out to the good first sergeants. Oh my gosh, I had almost forgot about that story. So yeah, that happened. And then also I talked about the car at the beginning, but how I was able to get the car is that I also took 2 jobs. I worked at Express, and I also worked at Pier 1 Imports. When I was at Dover, I did those 2 jobs in addition to being active duty so that I could pay for the car and the insurance for the car. So your girl was working, okay? Working. So yeah, I had working. I feel like, yes, I retired from the military after 33 years, but as soon as I was 16 and able to work, like really work, when I had a car, I've been working ever since then, but in some capacity. But yeah, since I've been active duty, I've had multiple jobs, not just serving. So yeah. Oh, another thing about Dover is they have like the Dover Downs where they do the race car driving. And every single year, the squadron used to send people out there to earn money for the booster club holiday parties and all that kind of stuff. So you had to work the races. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know what it was. But I was there for 2 years. I had to do it twice. And when I tell you, I was like, mm-mm. Mm-mm. I don't want any part of this. It felt oppressive. Now, that is my experience. I am not saying that people who are in NASCAR and all NASCAR is like anti-black or whatever, but I felt as though I should not have been there. And they had me doing, what was I doing the first one? The first one, I think I was working in like a beverage area because I wasn't 21, so I couldn't do anything with alcohol. So I think it was working concessions or something, and I remember doing Cokes or whatever. And then the second year, they had me in like what do you call it? You know how they have like the booths or whatever, kind of like a private booth where I had to like run and with the food and all that kind of stuff back and forth, back and forth. And those people, they just weren't really nice. They weren't nice people. I didn't have a great experience there. Didn't really like it. Didn't really like it. Didn't really like it. But yeah, that was my experience at Dover. And I know I was going to talk about my second base next, but I will talk about that in my next video. Let me just make sure I don't forget anything. So yes, I do have a plan. I have like topics for each video, but I don't have like bullet points. So as I'm doing this, I might need to go through and just make sure I think about it before I come on camera and just start rambling, talking about it. Because I guarantee you I have for today, talk about Yakota, your second base. And what are we doing? We're finishing up Pope, my first base. But let me think. What else happened at Pope? My own room. I'm not going to talk about the trauma that I experienced at Pope. That's another story. If we want to talk about trauma, we're going to try to make this, not that I don't want to acknowledge the things that have happened to me, but I think that there's another place to do that. I don't think that that's like this forum is the right place to do it. Okay. Oh, I had my first surgery there at Dover. I got really, 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 really sick, like super duper duper sick. I'm throwing up, going out of both ends. It was terrible. I was in the hospital, go to the hospital. And they did all kinds of x-rays and they made me do a barium enema. I mean, all kinds of things to try to figure out what was going on with my gastrointestinal stuff. It was jacked. It was terrible. But they couldn't figure out what was going on. So they did something called an exploratory lab, which I don't think they do anymore. And I'm not sure if it's medical racism because they literally cut me open to explore what was going on inside of me. I don't think they do that anymore. I'm pretty sure it's highly illegal now. But anyway, they did an exploratory lab on me and I had like staples in my stomach and I was living in the dorms. And I called my mom my first sergeant called my mom to let her know, hey, your daughter's in surgery, this, that, and the third. And I had like, because of the way they cut me and the invasiveness of the surgery, I was like, I think I had like 6 weeks convalescent leave. And they wanted me to go back to my dorm room to convalesce. And my mom came and said, how do you expect her to get well in a dorm room by herself? She has no kitchen. She has no one to take care of her. She's coming home. And the first sergeant was like, well, for convalescent leave, we don't let people leave the local area. And my mom said, let me speak to the commander. When I tell you we don't play about our kids, my mama don't play about me, and I do not play about Jasmine. So needless to say, my mom came up, and as soon as I was cleared to fly, I left over and came home to Augusta where she took care of me for 6 weeks before I went back for my outpatient. But that was a big deal for me. It was the first time I ever had surgery and they messed it up. They did it wrong. I mean, it was a lot. I was in the hospital for like 5 days. And the first 2 days were just them trying to figure out what happened. And then they did the exploratory thing on the third, stayed 2 more days. And then I was discharged. But yeah, that was my first assignment. Dover Air Force Base, 3rd Airlift Squadron, or was it 2nd Airlift Squadron? Well, I can't remember. Yeah, did some incentive flights, got my first flight suit. And I did my upgrade training. I went from Airman Basic to, I think it was an Airman. What time did I leave it as an A1C? I think I pinned on I pinned on A1C, so I had 2 stripes when I left. But yeah, that's Dover. First base. Next up will be Yokota, and I promise I'll try to think this thing through. But thanks for hanging with me, guys. Bye.